Some things break under pressure, some remain immutable, but there are also things that grow thanks to volatility, randomness, chaos, and uncertainty. This statement lies at the core of Antifragile, a work that changes the way we see the world. Most of us are accustomed to two states, either fragile and vulnerable when faced with change, or resilient and able to withstand shocks. But this book proposes a third state, antifragile. This is when volatility, instead of causing harm, becomes a source of nourishment, when shocks don't weaken us but make us stronger. Juxtapose the image of a glass cup and human muscle. One fears vibration, the other needs impact to develop. From this simple comparison, the entire argument expands to economics, politics, medicine, and the art of living. It's not just a theory, it's a way of thinking capable of overturning what we take for granted. This book is not about offering quick success methods, much less painting comforting promises. It takes readers to uncomfortable places, opaqueness, uncertainty, crossroads where traditional reason becomes useless. In this world, stability turns out to be a dangerous illusion. The more we optimize, the more brittle we become, the more we avoid impact, the more susceptible we are to destruction by unexpected shocks. The paradox here is that uncertainty itself is the only certainty. And the real question isn't how to control it, but how to live with it, even to grow from it. The chapters unfold a journey from Thales' olive press story to the errors of theoreticians, from the green lumber fallacy to lessons in trial and error and optionality. From there, readers are led to familiar concepts redefined: health, justice, ethics. Even knowledge is illuminated under a nonlinear light. Each example exposes a truth. The world doesn't move in a straight line, and if we keep viewing it with linear thinking, we will bind ourselves to fragility. From economics to medicine, from history to daily life, the overarching message remains: the world is not built for stability. It is built to challenge, to filter, to strengthen what dares to face it. So the question for listeners is, in current life, what are the things mistakenly believed to be stable, but are in fact merely a thin shell concealing fragility? Is it the so-called safe job, the comfort of convenience, or the legal systems we believe can protect us? And more importantly, how can each person find their own antifragile structure? A structure that not only withstands uncertainty, but transforms it into a resource. When we send a package containing a fragile crystal goblet to a relative in a distant region, our first instinct is to label it fragile. Everyone understands. The item needs careful handling, it must avoid impact. But if you ask, what is the opposite of fragile? Most would answer durable, resilient, robust. That answer is familiar but wrong. Because durability or resilience merely means not being harmed. It stands still, unmoving. But there is another rare and unnamed thing. The more it is impacted, the more it is damaged, the stronger it becomes. That is the true opposite of fragile. We must turn to mythology for a worthy metaphor. Damocles, enjoying luxury under a sword suspended by a single horsehair, is the image of absolute fragility. He might sit amidst a splendid banquet, but even a slight tremor could end everything. The phoenix, a bird reborn from ashes, symbolizes returning intact after destruction, but it's still insufficient. For there is one who surpasses even the phoenix, the hydra. The monster that, for every head cut off, 2 more grow back. The hydra is the spirit of the new concept. Antifragile, that which thrives on chaos, delights in shocks and misfortunes. From this, a truth emerges. Most of life, from biological evolution and culture to ideas, has operated like the hydra. Every system that has survived over time is nourished by risk and uncertainty, not by avoiding it. Yet, for thousands of years, humans have lacked a language to name this phenomenon. We speak of resilience, of robustness, but we rarely realize there are things that exist thanks to storms, just as ancient people had no word for blue, but still saw the sky and the sea. This misunderstanding is not merely a linguistic problem. It affects how we build society. We are so enamored with order, with protective policies, that we unintentionally make the world more fragile, like overprotective parents who make their children weak before they enter life, or organizations that try to suppress volatility, only to create unforeseen collapses. This is the tragedy of modernity, thinking we are helping, but actually depriving the system of what it needs most impact. Yet it's not just on a macro level. Within each body, there is powerful evidence. Muscles only develop when placed under overload, forced to compensate by becoming larger and stronger. Bones harden only through regular impacts and vibrations. The immune system is similar. A body that has never faced bacteria or viruses will be weak, even vulnerable to death from minor agents. This is the mechanism of overcompensation, or, in other words, overcompensation in mental life. This overcompensation also leaves its mark. A fervent, crazy love can tear an individual apart but simultaneously ignite unprecedented strength, making people creative, daring to take risks, daring to abandon everything to seize the moment. The beauty of love is its antifragile nature. The more forbidden, the more it burns. History is full of examples. Seemingly disorganized uprisings gain strength from unexpected explosions. The more they are suppressed, the more they spread. This is also true for information. A banned book will be read more, a blocked idea will be sought more vigorously. Fragility is what needs protection to survive. What is truly strong needs only to be beaten once, and it will return with double the strength. This is the paradox of life. We are taught that stability is good, that chaos needs to be eliminated. But stability itself is the poison. Perpetual tranquility makes individuals, organizations, and even nations rigid, fragile, and easily broken when faced with a major shock. Meanwhile, systems accustomed to living in uncertainty from noisy markets and brutal battlefields to turbulent love affairs endure longer than any human-designed model. So how should we live in an uncertain world? Should we avoid risks or plunge into them? The answer is evident. If we want to live like the Hydra, we must learn to embrace shocks, to view mistakes as nourishment, so that our lives, instead of shattering, generate more strength. Imagine a small cat jumping from a table to the floor. It lands, stumbles, then immediately adjusts its body. Its legs spring with new flexibility. Each fall is a lesson, an adaptation. An organic body, like a cat, is designed to utilize impact. It seeks uncertainty, it thrives on volatility. Now try placing a washing machine next to the cat. The machine is a perfect engineering marvel, spinning and washing with precise rhythm. But if shaken violently or encountering an unexpected malfunction, it will break, unable to repair itself. The washing machine doesn't learn from mistakes, it simply wears down and ceases to function. This reveals the fundamental difference between the organic and the mechanical. The more the cat faces uncertainty, the stronger it becomes, while the more the machine is challenged, the closer it gets to breaking down. If we turn life into a giant washing machine, everything arranged, schedules safe, no surprises, then we are stripping away our ability to self-recover and evolve. That is the disease of modernity, touristification. Life packaged like a safe trip, every destination pre-programmed, no risks, no randomness. But this artificial safety weakens humans because the organic needs chaos to grow, while the touristified only consumes experiences instead of truly living. Then we encounter a deeper paradox. The death of some individuals is a condition for the collective to survive and strengthen. This is a law of evolution. Each organism, each failed experiment, is like a chess piece sacrificed to pave the way for the species to advance. Mistakes and sacrifices are the raw material for life to constantly regenerate. Look at the world of entrepreneurs. How many fail, lose everything, disappear without a trace? But it is these stumbles that help society learn what is effective, what is dangerous. Those who dare to try, who dare to bear risk, have paid the price so that the majority can reap the rewards. Without those who dare to fail, there would be no innovation, no progress. In battle, the death of a soldier is never meaningless when viewed through the lens of evolution. Individual sacrifice forces the collective to learn to adapt, change strategies, and forge greater strength. And in science, every failed invention, every collapsed hypothesis becomes a stepping stone for new discoveries. The whole only grows when a part accepts to shatter. This is the key point. The robustness of the community is always bought with the fragility of individuals. If everyone avoids risk, society will be calm but stillborn. Only when people venture into uncertainty, accepting loss, can the entire collective be nourished. Therefore, humanity's evolution does not come from cautious individuals who preserve themselves, but from daring people who risk mistakes and sacrifice, from warriors on the battlefield, bankrupt entrepreneurs, to scientists who burn their lives on a false hypothesis. All of them are the fuel of life. When we understand this, we no longer fear so-called failure or loss. Death is not just an end, but a condition for other life to continue. Mistakes are not just blemishes, but valuable data for the survival of the species. And above all, adversity is not something to avoid, but the greatest teacher, the one who sculpts true strength. Thus, from the image of the Hydra in mythology to the body's overreaction, from the cat compared to the washing machine, to sacrifice in evolution, everything connects into a unified chain. Only what knows how to embrace uncertainty, how to grow from shocks, deserves to be called antifragile. If one day you walk into a noisy Middle Eastern market, where stalls are crammed together, the sound of knives mingling with arguments, you will see a model operating without a blueprint. Each vendor, each buyer, improvises according to the changing rhythm of the crowd. Prices rise and fall with the market's breath. No one controls the whole, but the overall system is incredibly resilient and adaptable. This is a bottom-up model, a system that knows how to navigate uncertainty. Next to it, imagine a giant office building where hundreds of employees sit in brightly lit cubicles. Every decision is dictated by superiors. Every number follows forecasts drawn up months ago. It appears orderly and certain. But this artificial stability turns the entire machinery into something fragile. Just one unexpected shock is enough to bring it down. I once told the story of identical twins. One worked in a large bank with a stable salary and full benefits. The other drove a taxi, living off random customers. When the banking crisis erupted, the brother suddenly saw that the safety he had clung to for 25 years was merely an illusion. Meanwhile, the taxi driver continued to make a living because his life had always been uncertain. What was thought to be certain turned out to be dangerous, while what was thought to be fragile proved more robust. This is why fragmented societies, like small city-states, often maintain their strength for a long time. Diversity and chaos are cushions against systemic shocks. Conversely, concentrated power models, the larger they are, the more susceptible they are to complete collapse when one link breaks. I call this the paradox of stability. The more we try to control, the easier it is to create Extrastan, a land of extremes, where just one event can wipe out everything. Financial crashes and political crises often stem from the belief that everything is under control. The price of artificial calm is unexpected catastrophes. Going further, we see there are systems that not only endure randomness but need it to live. This is the idea of loving randomness. Some things can only grow stronger through volatility. Think of the process of tempering metal. If not subjected to alternating hot and cold temperatures, it will be weak and brittle. Randomness, volatility, is the tempering heat for society as a whole, but modern humans are obsessed with smoothness. We think prolonged peace is a blessing, but it actually accumulates risk. Artificial stability is a time bomb. When it explodes, it will be more devastating than any minor chaos. A few small conflicts, short-term impacts, can sometimes prevent a major war. Like a fever helping the body fight serious illness, localized disturbances can save the entire system. Thus, the question is not how to eliminate chaos, but how much uncertainty society needs to remain healthy. The irony is that those who are too enamored with tranquility are precisely those who are secretly planting bombs under their own feet. Uncertainty is an inherent part of life. Only by learning to accept and utilize it can we avoid the tragedy of fragility created by modernity. From ancient times, humans have carried within them the desire to fix things. See a fever, we take antipyretics. See an economy falter, the government injects more money. See mischievous children, parents quickly scold them. But there is a cruel rule: naive intervention often causes more harm than good. I call it iatrogenics, the harm created by the very hand that seeks to heal. In medicine, how many times have doctors prescribed more drugs, gradually weakening the patient's body due to side effects? In politics, how many times have leaders launched grand reforms, only to cause crises more severe than the very illness they intended to cure? The fundamental principle must be, first, do no harm. The paradox here is that doing nothing is sometimes the wisest choice. Procrastination, a pharaonic delay, type of hesitation, slowly observing, not rushing to intervene, is underestimated wisdom. But in modern times, media, public opinion, and politicians all demand immediate reactions. The obsession with doing something makes society resemble a patient who continuously takes medication until the medication itself kills him. In the modern environment, we suffer from another ailment, media-induced neurosis. Every new piece of news, every statistic announced, immediately transforms into pressure to act. The result is a flurry of hasty decisions, adding more volatility instead of calming things down. It is this collective noise and anxiety that makes the system fragile. Even in science, intervention is deified. We confuse catalysts with causes, thinking that by simply adding something, we can improve the world. But the world is not a machine we can dismantle and reassemble at will. It is more like a living organism, where every mistaken intervention can be fatal. From the disease of intervention, we move to another illusion, the belief in prediction. For centuries, humanity has dreamed of knowing the future, from fortune-tellers and astrologers to economists with complex models. All sell a promise: we know what's coming. But the truth is, all predictions are bound by opaqueness and uncertainty. Think of the turkey. Every day it is fed until it believes the world is safe. Humans are kind. Each day that passes reinforces this belief. Until one morning, the knife descends. That is the limit of prediction. We only know up to today, but never see the shock of tomorrow. In economics and politics, the belief in prediction creates huge tragedies. The 2008 financial crisis, wars, the collapse of empires all bear the mark of the illusion that we can control the future with models and numbers. Prediction is the naive child of modernity, nurtured by the arrogance of human intellect. Worse, society harbors the hope that we can eliminate black swans, rare but devastating events. No, we cannot. All promises of no more black swans are just lullabies. This world exists through uncertainty, and uncertainty is the fuel of evolution. If we refuse to confront this, we will continue to move from naive intervention to illusory prediction, from poison to false prophecy. Ultimately, the very schemes intended to make the world safe turn it into a more fragile place than ever before. People still prefer those with degrees, academic titles, who can present models, spreadsheets, and graphs. But in real life, there is another type of person. They don't predict, they don't philosophize at length. They simply smell danger and stay away, seize opportunity when it arises. Fat Tony is the embodiment of this non-predictive worldview. He doesn't need to analyze thousands of numbers. For Tony, lunch is more important than a report. He says sitting and eating with someone, observing how they ask questions, how they remain silent, is more trustworthy than 100 pages of forecasts. The truth of life lies in everyday details, not in abstract models. When Tony looks at the world, he divides people into two types: suckers and non-suckers. A sucker believes in predictions, placing all faith in false safety. A non-sucker understands that uncertainty always lurks behind, so they prepare for the worst instead of believing beautiful promises. Imagine a large library with thousands of unread books. A superficial person would consider it a waste. But for Tony, it is the unread books that create strength, that is potential, a reserve against fragility. A system with room for the unused will be more robust than an overly optimized system. In conversation, Tony often mentions the loneliness of the non-predictor. Because the majority prefer to hear certainties, graphs drawing straight lines to the sky. Few are willing to accept the truth that the future is opaque, and wisdom lies in living with opaqueness rather than chasing it away. The one who knows how to doubt will endure long-term. From Fat Tony, we turn to another figure, another source of inspiration: Seneca, the Roman Stoic philosopher, a man who not only spoke but lived by the experience of loss and power. He understood that losses in life are often finite, while benefits can be infinite. Losing a sum of money, a project, an opportunity is merely finite, but if we seize the right moment, the benefits can open up boundlessly. This is fundamental asymmetry. It's like flipping a coin where you risk 1 unit but have the potential to gain 10, while the maximum loss is still only 1. Seneca saw that wisdom lies in arranging life so that downside is always small, while upside is wide open. Many misunderstand Stoicism as insensitivity, as turning oneself into a log. But no, Stoicism is the art of taming emotions. It teaches us to look directly at loss, to get used to the thought that tomorrow we might have nothing. From there, when adversity strikes, we are not swept into a vortex of despair. Stoicism doesn't kill emotions but trains them, like tempering fire in a furnace, so the fire doesn't erupt but burns steadily under control. Seneca often advised, think of the worst before it happens. If one day wealth disappears, we won't be shocked because we have mentally practiced living that way. The master is not the one who avoids adversity, but the one who has tamed themselves before it. Connecting Fat Tony and Seneca is a red thread. Both reject the illusion of prediction. Tony uses street intuition to sniff out fragility. Seneca uses philosophy to expose the asymmetrical world. And both show us that the right way is not to know everything in advance, but to know how to suffer the least damage and leave open the most benefits. Here we have laid the foundation. The non-predictive world is not frightening if we view it through the eyes of Fat Tony and Seneca. The one who knows how to minimize downside and keep upside open is the one who has learned the art of non-prediction. Seneca once said, "The master of life is he who can look at loss without trembling." But he didn't stop at abstract philosophy. He showed how to structure one's life so that uncertainty becomes an ally. The core is to avoid shocks that could wipe out everything, while leaving open the possibility of benefiting from the unexpected. From this emerges a very special image, Seneca's barbell. At one end, we place absolute safety, like cash reserves, basic life skills, simplicity, and needs. At the other end, we place big bets, opportunities beyond limits, where risk is finite but benefits can be boundless. This two-ended structure allows us both to not collapse and to have the chance to reach far. Seneca did not believe in the golden mean. The middle path that classical philosophy extolled is actually a trap. When we choose a moderately safe path, we are not robust enough to withstand events, nor bold enough to achieve large profits. The middle is the most fragile place. There's a metaphor I like: don't marry a rock star, because love with a rock star is an irreversible risk package. If it breaks, you can't put it back together as before. That's the difference between a small impact that can recover and a major event that shatters completely. What cannot be reversed is the most dangerous thing. If we compare an accountant to a rock star, we will clearly see the paradox. The accountant seems safe with a stable monthly salary. But with just one event job loss, illness, everything will collapse, because their entire life depends on a single income stream. Conversely, although the rock star lives in chaos, each song, each performance can unleash enormous potential. Stability is fragile, while chaos sometimes holds immense power. The wise person will not try to eliminate uncertainty. They know it's impossible. Instead, they tame uncertainty, distributing risk so that a shock doesn't kill them, but even helps them grow like a ship sailing on a stormy sea. They don't pray for calm waves, but learn to hoist the sails in the right direction so that strong winds carry them further. The non-predictive world, therefore, is no longer a ghost. When we understand Seneca, we realize that living with uncertainty is not endurance, but an art. The barbell, the rejection of the middle, and the principle of avoiding irreversibility are the keys. When we combine Fat Tony and Seneca, the picture becomes clear. One gives us practical vigilance, the other gives us philosophical structure. Both remind us, don't predict, prepare, don't seek false safety, learn to embrace uncertainty. And if you ask me, the biggest lesson is this: the future doesn't need to be known beforehand. It just needs to be arranged so that when events happen, we lose the least and can benefit the most. That is the only way to survive and grow in an unpredictable world. Long ago, Thales, one of the 7 sages of Greece, proved to his mockers that philosophers not only know theory. He predicted that year's olive harvest would be bountiful, so he prepaid to rent all the olive presses in the region. When the harvest came, anyone who wanted to press oil had to pay a high price to use the equipment he controlled. This move didn't require deep agricultural knowledge, but simply a smart option. If the harvest was bad, he lost a small amount. If it was abundant, he gained immensely. This is the power of optionality, the weapon of antifragility in life. We are often obsessed with having to understand everything thoroughly before acting. But in reality, by simply designing reasonable options, we can live without prediction. Optionality allows us to enjoy the upside when favorable and avoid the downside when unfavorable. This is true wisdom, not rigid knowledge. The natural world operates this way. Via negativa means that some things benefit from more volatility. A tree facing storms will grow deeper roots. A body exposed to bacteria will develop immunity. Roman politics was similar. Their system was not designed by a single genius legislator, but by countless trials and errors throughout history. Each crisis led to adjustments, eventually forming a robust structure. Fumbling, not theory, built collective intelligence. I often mock what I call Harvardisms, the naive method that assumes theory leads practice. That's the illusion of those who think they can sit at a desk and teach birds how to fly. In reality, birds have been flying for a long time, and researchers only write reports afterwards. The wheel, the jet engine, even wheeled luggage all came from trial and error, not from a prophetic professor. Less is more. Less theory, more experimentation. Mistakes are investments. Many confuse what we can measure with what is truly profitable. That is the green lumber fallacy. There was a lumber trader who got rich from green lumber his entire life, but he didn't even know that green lumber meant unseasoned wood. Conversely, experts who read books about lumber went bankrupt. Knowing a name, knowing a definition, doesn't mean knowing what truly creates value. Fat Tony understood this too. He didn't need to debate philosophy, he just needed to look at exposure. When the worst happens, how much do I lose? When the best happens, what do I gain? All of Tony's successes were not based on flowery concepts, but on clear-headedness in the face of uncertainty. The truly intelligent person is not the one who defines well, but the one who can design beneficial asymmetry. These examples reveal a deep paradox. The more academic knowledge we have, the easier it is to fall into the trap of definitions. Meanwhile, what the world needs is cleverness in utilizing optionality. Wisdom doesn't come from understanding everything, but from knowing how to structure uncertainty so that uncertainty works for us. When I recall Thales with his olive presses, I see he didn't need to prove himself with long philosophical arguments, but merely with a small action, buying options. From that, he showed us that the essence of wisdom lies not in accurate prediction, but in arranging things so that risks are finite and benefits are infinite. And from this, we understand that optionality is the hidden intelligence of nature, the thing that has propelled humanity forward despite all adversity. If you reread acclaimed histories, you will find a paradox. History is often written by the defeated, not because they won, but because the noisy and dramatic truth often overwhelms the silent truth. Great inventions, long strides of humanity, did not come from formal blueprints but from trial and error, from tinkering. The seemingly anonymous think of the Industrial Revolution. No council sat down to design it. Instead, craftsmen, merchants, and tinkerers experimented, failed, tried again, and eventually, steam power, engines, and weaving machines emerged. All true progress is a byproduct of trial and error, not the result of academic projects. That's why I say if the government wants to spend, it should spend on tinkering, diverse, chaotic small efforts. Don't pour money into forced research, because the more we plan, the more we close ourselves off to uncertainty, and uncertainty is where breakthroughs arise. This is the lesson from chaos. Chaos is not an enemy but fertile ground. In nature, a vibrant forest thrives not from silence, but from periodic wildfires. In life, a strong person isn't one who avoids events, but one who has experienced many small shocks. So when we turn everything into safe tourism, we are killing the ability to adapt. I call it touristification. A mother arranges every lesson, every vacation, every extracurricular activity for her child. It seems good, but she is actually depriving the child of the opportunity to encounter the real world. A barbell education is the answer. One end extremely safe, one end extremely risky. In the middle, the so-called golden mean is the most fragile. When I place Fat Tony opposite Socrates, that tension becomes a vivid illustration. Socrates represents the spirit of philosophical definition. He asks, what is justice? What is virtue? Believing that by analyzing concepts, we will touch upon truth. Tony, however, scoffs. He says, I don't need to know what justice is. I just need to know when I'm vulnerable to getting hit, when I can avoid a shock. Fragility versus probability. Socrates might sit and debate probabilities, but for Tony, it's enough to know if an event, should it happen, will break his spine or just graze him. No need for precise percentages, because one broken bone is enough to destroy, even if the probability is only 1%. The important difference lies in the fact that events and exposure are not the same. In the same storm, a person in a small boat might drown, while the owner of a shipbuilding factory makes a fortune. The same event, one loses everything, the other profits. Therefore, we don't need to know all events. We just need to understand our exposure to them. And this is the conclusion for the entire train of thought. True wisdom does not lie in defining, nor in smooth plans, but in the ability to live with uncertainty, even to exploit it. Live with trial and error, bet on asymmetry. Educate yourself with a barbell structure and always ask, am I fragile to this event? If Fat Tony wins the debate, it's not because he has sharper arguments than Socrates, but because he understands that life is a collision course, not a philosophy class. And if we want to be antifragile, we must learn to accept chaos as part of wisdom. Imagine a person standing before two choices, receiving one blow from a large rock or enduring a deluge from 1,000 small pebbles. The total weight is the same, but the nature is completely different. A large rock can kill, while 1,000 pebbles only cause discomfort and pain. This is the nature of nonlinearity. Consequences do not follow a straight line, but explode powerfully as scale increases. Humans easily err when viewing the world through a linear lens. We think 10 small injuries are equivalent to one large injury, but the reality is far different. Cumulative damage is not proportional to size. A large shock causes consequences far exceeding many small shocks combined. In medicine, one strong dose of poison is enough to end a life, while 1,000 tiny doses might be eliminated by the body. In traffic, a small obstruction only delays for a few minutes, but when an entire bridge is blocked, the system is paralyzed for hours. This world does not adhere to the principle of a little more means a little more, but operates along a nonlinear curve. This is the crucial point for distinguishing between the fragile and the antifragile. The fragile are those that hate volatility. With increasing uncertainty, they easily break. The antifragile, on the other hand, love volatility. The more small fluctuations, the stronger they become. The tool to illuminate this truth lies in the shape of the curves. Concave denotes fragility, convex denotes antifragility. Try to imagine placing a fragile ceramic cup on a table. With each slight tremor, it's fine. But when the jolt is strong enough, the cup shatters irrevocably. That is a concave graph. Initially, the reaction is small, but past a threshold, damage skyrockets. Conversely, think of human muscles. Training with small doses of impact makes them stronger. Each time under tension, muscle fibers tear slightly, then repair and thicken. The curve here is convex, a positive reaction to small fluctuations. The mistake of modern society is to prefer everything regular, rhythmic, optimized like a metronome. Regular meals, regular exercise, regular resource distribution. But regularity does not equate to health. A lack of fluctuation, a lack of small impacts becomes a harmful factor. The body needs to be challenged, just as Mithridates trained himself to resist poison by taking small doses every day. We also need small stresses to nourish our resistance. When extending this to economic life, it becomes even clearer. A $100 million project is far more likely to go over budget than a $5 million project. The swelling in scale does not increase risk proportionally, but makes risk jump exponentially. In finance, a portfolio containing diversified small risks is more likely to survive than a colossal bet placing everything on one scenario. In society, GDP growth also carries the same paradox. Rapid growth not only adds benefits but simultaneously inflates the level of uncertainty. Nonlinearity is also evident in how we handle time. Think of traffic. Just a few cars running red lights, and the system experiences a minor wobble then stabilizes. But a serious incident on a main road will cause a chain reaction of chaos, turning minutes into hours, delays into crises. Nonlinearity is what explains why small is safe and large is dangerous. The lesson here is profound. Favor small shocks. Don't avoid all of them. They are like vaccines, causing temporary discomfort but providing long-term benefits. Avoiding all impacts to seek false stability only makes us more vulnerable when a large, unexpected shock arrives. In personal life, this means small failures, failing an exam, losing a sum of money. A breakup in love can become fertilizer for growth. But a complete failure, bankruptcy, losing all capital, mental breakdown can wipe out the entire journey. Humans are nourished by countless small impacts, but are easily destroyed by a single, excessively large shock. When I sat for hours in the attic, drawing and redrawing graphs, I realized everything came down to a single rule. Nonlinearity is the map of fragility. It is the magic mirror that shows us what is easily broken and what grows stronger through chaos. Learning to see the world through convex and concave curves, we will know how to build our own structure, avoiding large shocks but actively seeking small ones. From medieval times, people yearned to find the philosopher's stone, something that could turn iron into gold, poverty into wealth. But the real world doesn't operate according to that dream. What I call the inverse philosopher's stone is real and closer. It gives us the ability to identify what seems like gold but will turn into lead when uncertainty increases. In other words, instead of seeking a magical way to profit, we learn to detect fragile structures that will collapse under volatility. Remember the ceramic cup on the table. It doesn't need constant force, just one strong enough shock, and the result is permanent ruin. The inverse philosopher's stone is the method of shining a nonlinear light on that cup. The more uncertainty increases, the more its value depreciates until it is just fragments. I have witnessed this in the financial world, where giant institutions hide fragility behind a veneer of solidity. Fannie Mae is a prime example. For years, it was considered a pillar of the mortgage system, protected by trust and government backing. People looked at consistent profits, at growth numbers, without seeing that risk was inflating nonlinearly. Just one adverse fluctuation in the real estate market was enough to bring down that entire financial tower, causing a global shock. What's notable is that these organizations always give us signals before they collapse, but only those who look through a nonlinear lens can see them. Fragile things have a characteristic: the more volatility, the more they suffer. Let's call this the state of short convexity. Like a person holding a candle in the wind, a small breeze puts it out, but a strong wind fans it into a raging fire. The inverse philosopher's stone doesn't require divination, just observation. Which object hates volatility, which object benefits from it? The basic principle here is very simple. Uncertainty and volatility are two sides of the same coin. A fragile system will be harmed when uncertainty increases, while an antifragile system will grow stronger. The issue is not the probability of an event occurring. We don't need to know if it's 2% or 20%, but the shape of the reaction when the event does occur. Concavity leads to nonlinear damage, convexity brings nonlinear benefits. Try applying this principle to everyday life. A job with a steady salary, stable growth sounds safe, but actually has a concave structure. One layoff, one unexpected event, and everything collapses. Meanwhile, a risky profession like an artist or an entrepreneur has a convex characteristic. Many small failures don't kill them, but one big success is enough to compensate for all of them and exceed far beyond. The difference lies in how one reacts to volatility, not in superficial regularity. I often describe it with another image. You walk into a room and see a crystal vase on the floor, you immediately know it's fragile. Just one big impact and it's gone. Conversely, if you see a living body, it needs movement, impact, small daily pressures to maintain strength. This is how the world categorizes things. What hates volatility is concave. What benefits from volatility is convex. This opens up a completely different approach to life and society. We don't need to predict exactly which event will happen. Instead of asking, what will come? We ask, how will I fare if that comes? And the answer depends on whether we are in a concave or convex state. This is the technical plumbing of the entire idea of antifragility. From it, we can shine a light on every domain, from medicine, finance, politics, to how we arrange our personal lives. Everything can be categorized by nonlinearity: concave or convex, fragile or antifragile. Avoid concave structures. Actively seek convex structures. Don't chase false stability. Let uncertainty become your ally. In nonlinearity, we find the nature of fragility and also find a way to transcend it. In a world where uncertainty reigns, there is a silent but more enduring rule than any theory. Time is the harshest test. Anything that has existed for a long time has gone through countless shocks, survived purges that new things cannot withstand. Time is the tool for detecting fragility. What cannot endure fluctuations will break quickly. What is antifragile will only grow stronger through the centuries. From this, we have a strange phenomenon I call the Lindy effect. The life expectancy of a non-perishable item increases for every day it continues to live. If a book has survived for 100 years, it is likely to be read for another 100 years. A technology that has stood strong through many generations will continue to exist, despite the flashy new gadgets out there. The longer the time, the stronger the signal. Resilience proves its vitality through its very survival. Conversely, the obsession with the new, which I call neomania, is the disease of our age. We chase new drugs, new terminologies, new syndromes without first seeing if they can endure over time. The new is often weak because it has not been filtered by time. We invent countless labels for psychology: type A, passive-aggressive, this disorder, that disorder. But often, these are just imaginative products of an affluent society, not reality. The principle I derive is, let time be the judge. When faced with a choice between something that has existed for hundreds of years and something that has only been hyped in the news for a few months, I choose the old not because it's perfect, but because it has proven its ability to survive. Time is less deceptive than humans. This spirit applies most strongly in medicine. The history of healing is not just a history of progress, but also a history of disasters caused by doctors themselves. Humans intervene too much, thinking they know the body well, when in fact they are pushing patients into new risks. This harm has a name: iatrogenic harm, caused by the very process of treatment. Imagine someone with a slight fever. In most cases, the body resists and recovers on its own. But the desire to intervene leads doctors to prescribe more drugs, more procedures, more tests. Each added step opens a new gateway for error. These seemingly minor interventions, when compounded, cause nonlinear damage. The original illness might have resolved itself, but the cure turns into the cause of tragedy. That's why I propose a simple rule: via negativa, in medicine only intervene when the benefits clearly outweigh the risks. If a procedure saves a life, if a drug like penicillin has clear efficacy, then use it because there exists a beneficial asymmetry, a convexity. The gain is large, the loss is small. But in most ambiguous cases, let the body and time do their work. Do less. You are reducing fragility. It is important not to be enchanted by beautiful evidence presented in a nonlinear world. So-called safety is often just an illusion. The absence of evidence of harm does not equate to evidence of no harm. People often confuse these two things, and that confusion has killed not a few lives. I still remember the time I went to the emergency room with a broken nose. The doctor wanted to apply ice to reduce swelling. I asked, "Is there any evidence that ice is better than letting the body heal itself?" He had no answer. When I got home, I researched and found no studies truly proving that icing provides significant benefits beyond a few rare cases. That intervention merely satisfied the human psychological need to do something, rather than being based on the principle of asymmetrical benefit harm. The painful truth is that medicine, like politics and economics, suffers from the same ailment: action bias. We fear standing still, fear being seen as powerless, so we rush to do more. But doing more is not necessarily better. Often, it's harmful. In complex environments where we don't have all the data, doing less is often wiser than doing more. Respect nature, respect time. Don't quickly believe that your intellect is sufficient to replace millions of years of evolution. Often, the best thing we can do is nothing at all. The via negativa principle is not only true in medicine, but permeates every corner of life. Often, excess is the cause of fragility, and the paradox here is that the richer one becomes, the more easily one falls into the trap of excess. The more choices available, the more people want to add, forgetting that strength sometimes comes from removing things. From ancient times, people who went into the desert, abandoning conveniences, choosing asceticism, understood a deep principle. Intentional asceticism is a beneficial type of small stress. When we voluntarily refuse food, alcohol, soft beds, the body is placed in a state of challenge. Latent mechanisms are awakened, just as muscles tear slightly then heal and become stronger. This self-limitation helps them become antifragile. In the modern world, intermittent fasting is seen as a health trend, but it has existed for thousands of years in religions. Periodic fasting days, Lenten seasons, Ramadan all are ways for the body to naturally reset. Eating less is not just about calorie restriction, but about allowing the system to self-cleanse. It perfectly aligns with the via negativa principle. Instead of adding supplements and vitamins, try removing things. The body will heal itself. Not only the body, but the mind also benefits from moderation. In an information-overloaded society, people are submerged in thousands of messages every day. Cutting out noise, withdrawing from social media, sitting in silence is a form of mental via negativa. Many Zen masters and hermits have proven that this emptiness is not a loss, but an invisible surplus. Religion, in its profound sense, once played a role as a non-interventional therapy when people were mildly ill. Instead of rushing to medication, they prayed, participated in rituals, lived within a community of believers. That was not supernatural magic, but a way to avoid falling into the trap of excessive intervention. Rituals provided mental reassurance for the body to heal itself over time. In this way, religion inadvertently became an antifragile protective layer, keeping people away from many medical errors. Of course, not all of it was positive. There were extremes leading to fanaticism and superstition. But the underlying meaning remains clear. Often, doing less, even doing nothing, is better than doing more. And then the biggest question arises: how to live long, but it also needs another clause: how to live long but not too long? No one wants to prolong the existence of an old, depleted body, living on medication and machines. Such artificial prolongation is a paradox, seemingly living longer, but actually a fragile struggle. The via negativa principle offers a different path: live long by removing instead of adding. Periodic fasting instead of continuous eating, natural movement instead of overexercising. Removing unnecessary supplements instead of consuming more, reducing dependence on conveniences instead of increasing them. Each act of removal is like clearing the nonlinear dust for the body and mind to recover. This is not a pessimistic philosophy, but an antifragile way of life. It does not promise eternal happiness, but grants us the ability to withstand uncertainty, like a boatman on a stormy sea who does not pray for calm waves, but learns to row with their rhythm. Distinguish between what needs to be added and what needs to be removed. When the benefit clearly outweighs the harm, do it. When the benefit is unclear, leave it alone. That is the asymmetrical principle of convexity. Every decision should be viewed in this light, rather than being led by the fear of standing still or the temptation of the new. Ultimately, I realize that living by via negativa is not a rejection of life, but an acceptance of life in a refined way. Removing things is not about having less, but about retaining what is essential and enduring. And it is in that void that we find strength. Modern society wears the glamorous cloak of progress, but beneath lies a moral disease, the transfer of fragility. This means one party benefits from an action, while another bears the cost. In the shadows of opaqueness, people learn to hide risks, passing them on to others while remaining safe themselves. Laws, no matter how sophisticated, can hardly keep up, because iatrogenics is not only present in medicine, but also in politics, finance, and management. Risks created by those in power are often delayed and invisible, making it hard to trace the true cause. In such a situation, there is only one robust solution: skin in the game, personal exposure to consequences. Almost 4,000 years ago, Hammurabi solved this problem. His code stipulated that if a house built by a builder collapsed and killed the owner's son, the builder's son must be killed. A simple, brutal, but fair principle. Whoever creates the risk must bear an equivalent risk. That was the old form of ethics, certain and transparent. Today, we abandon that simplicity, replacing it with countless procedures, paperwork, and legal contracts, things that only conceal true responsibility. The nature of this disease is the agency problem. The agent acts on behalf of another but for their own benefit, and from that arises asymmetry. One party reaps the benefits, another bears the harm. This asymmetry is the lifeblood of all modern deceit. Look at ancient societies. Those that still exist today were built on a completely different foundation. They honored those who dared to bear risks for the community. Heroes appeared not only in battle, but in everyday life. The sentinel risked danger to protect the village. The mother rushed to save a child from a speeding car, even at the cost of her life. A hero is the inverse of the agency problem, voluntarily accepting disadvantage so others can be safe. Meanwhile, the current world witnesses the disappearance of heroes and the rise of moral inversions. Who holds power today? Not those who accept risk, but those like bankers, hired CEOs, politicians, people who know how to turn society into a shield for themselves. They live off free options. When successful, they receive glory and profit. When they fail, the damage is transferred to others. There is a particularly dangerous form I call decoys free option, those who offer advice but never bear responsibility. If the advice is wrong, the consequences fall on others. If it's right, they claim credit. Similarly, post-dicting is a game. After an event happens, people pretend they predicted it all along. All of this is a kind of moral cheating. There's also the Stiglitz syndrome, offering policy or investment recommendations, gaining fame and benefits if successful. But when it fails, the public bears the cost. The Rubin free option works by the same mechanism. He and many in the financial world profited from short-term successes, but when crisis struck, the government and the public had to bail them out. This is not just financial fraud, but moral theft, transferring risk from those in power to those without. Even in politics, we see champagne socialism. The rich advocate for equitable sharing, but they themselves live in an ivory tower, detached from the real risks the poor face. They entertain themselves with philosophy, but are never tested on their own skin. Against all these distortions, I propose a counter-concept: soul in the game. It's not just skin in the game, being forced to bear risk when acting, but also voluntarily committing oneself out of conviction. Soul in the game means living and dying by principles, so that words are not just sounds, but commitments etched into one's very being. I remember the story of Mrs. Vu, an elderly woman who sacrificed her life to save a child from a rushing car. No legal contract compelled her, no material benefit drew her. It was voluntary commitment, a shining testament to soul in the game. True ethics lie not in words or papers, but in the extent to which we dare to pay the price for what we believe. In an opaque world, only skin in the game can expose who is truly trustworthy and who is merely a moral parasite. When we look deeper into life, we clearly see that ethics cannot be separated from profession. Each profession carries its own type of risk and therefore requires a suitable ethical principle. Profession links ethics to one's craft, meaning the professional not only works for a living, but also bears personal responsibility for the consequences of that work. If a doctor prescribes medicine, he must be ready to share the risk with the patient. If an architect builds a bridge, he should be the first to dare to cross it. Conversely, modern society produces a class of wealthy but dependent people, dependent rich. They have money but live by subservience to the system, relying on protective structures rather than daring to stand alone with risk. Wealthy yet dependent, their ethics are easily distorted. We must also admit that what is legal is not necessarily legitimate. Laws are merely belated patches, often lagging behind ethics. An act might not violate the law but still be immoral. The gap between legality and morality is fertile ground for fraudsters. In that gray area, people learn to maneuver with ethical optionality, bending situations like a moral option. When it benefits them, they cite special circumstances to justify it. When it harms them, they hide behind laws. This discretion creates a new kind of asymmetry. They retain the benefits, while the harms are transferred to the community. Even academia is not immune to this disease. Academics option. Big data becomes a tool for researchers to select results favorable to themselves. If a prediction is correct, they publish and enjoy fame. If wrong, they remain silent, shifting the cost of error to society. The researcher has a free option, while the community bears the fragility. There's another layer: tyranny of the collective. When a large group believes in something, an individual, however correct, is stifled. This leads to a paradox. The crowd can be wrong, and the correct individual is often sacrificed. This collective dependence is itself a form of individual risk avoidance. All these mechanisms create the same type of transgression, enjoying benefits without bearing consequences. Look at three typical figures: Rubin, Alexander, Slist. They represent instances of stealing options in modern times-recommending policies, promoting models. When favorable, they reap fame, but when they fail, the public, the economy, the community bears the cost. This is not just financial fraud, but a betrayal of ethics. In all these cases, what is missing is a direct link from action to consequences on the skin of the actor themselves. Skin in the game must become the unwritten law of ethics. And at the deepest level, there is an even stricter principle. You shall not build your antifragility on the fragility of others. This is the measure of social justice. You can grow stronger through uncertainty, but you must not turn the fragility of others into fuel for your own antifragility. If you invest and win, be happy because you accepted your own risk. But if you are merely someone who pushes risk onto others, then all profits you gain are stolen. The ethics of a society are not measured by the number of legal regulations, but by the degree of personal exposure to the consequences of actions. When those in power and with resources are forced to bear risk along with the rest of the community, that society becomes fairer, more transparent, more antifragile. Attach your skin to your actions. Turn words into commitments to live and die by. Turn benefits into responsibilities, turn power into personal risk. Only then will the world be less unjust and ethics no longer a linguistic game. Having completed this journey, what resonates is not a list of formulas or a few secrets to success, but a different way of looking at life. The world is nonlinear, it is uncertain and full of paradoxes. The more we try to control, the more we expose ourselves to fragility. The more we try to avoid impacts, the more easily we break when an unexpected shock appears. The most important lesson is not just to avoid harm. Learn to grow stronger through harm. We have seen the difference between a large rock that can kill and 1,000 pebbles that only cause discomfort. We have seen how the body is tempered by small shocks. We have seen the danger of excessive intervention, of the infatuation with the new, of those who reap profits by shifting risks to others. All combine to form a picture. Antifragility is not just the ability to survive, but the ability to thrive thanks to chaos. So, what does this mean for each individual? Perhaps it forces us to re-ask fundamental questions. Are you living according to a concave or convex structure? Are you avoiding small shocks, thereby opening the door wide to big shocks? Or are you actively exposing yourself to small impacts so they become a vaccine for resilience? Try to look at your choices. A safe job where one event can cause you to lose everything, or a bumpy road with many small failures but one explosive opportunity that can change your life. Do you spend all day adding more information, more supplements, more conveniences, or are you practicing removal to leave space for natural strength to manifest itself? Also, don't forget the moral lesson. You shall not build your antifragility on the fragility of others. In a world where people easily hide risk, the scariest question is, are you unwittingly benefiting from someone else's pain? Is your safety bought with the fragility of others? As I close this book, I don't want you to think you've been given a master key. I only hope you begin to doubt. Doubt things that are too stable. Doubt certain promises. Doubt even your own desire for a smooth life. Because sometimes, smoothness is a shell concealing a coming storm. Instead of asking how to avoid uncertainty, try asking how uncertainty can become your ally. Instead of craving absolute safety, crave a structure that makes you grow through small shocks. Instead of running away, commit yourself. So what will you choose? A life outwardly smooth but easily shattered, or a journey with many small scratches, where each scratch makes you more resilient, more experienced? Do you dare to put your skin in the game, or do you merely want to benefit from the risks taken by others? No one can answer that question for you. Only you, in your daily choices, can decide whether you will be fragile, robust, or antifragile.